Hello guys, once again it's Matt and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons, and let's get into it. Make sure to subscribe as well. And yes guys, today we're going to talk about the Singapore Tech Tree, Singapore Aircraft Tech Tree, whatever you want to call it. Basically the idea here is not an alone tech tree, of course. It would be a sub-tree. For what country? Japan. Japan is a country that lacks a lot of options in the future, especially. But even now, you can see that they had to actually add the F-16AJ so that we can actually have something fourth generation before we get the F-15s and the F2, the Mitsubishi F2, right? So the Singapore aircraft would be kind of like helping out on that regard, since, I mean, there is a lot of options, not too many actually, but there are some options. And of course, I remember guys, yes, South Koreans, right? The South Koreans could be added as well. But to be honest, man, like, I don't know if it is a viable option, because I don't know how Gaijin is adding stuff. We might see a whole Korean tech tree, like a South and North Korean. So if that happens, it kind of leaves us with not a lot of options. But Singapore is one. They didn't have a very big air force, but they have a very interesting one that would not be enough for a lone tech tree, but be very good as a sub-tree. So imagine these aircraft being added together with the Japanese tech tree, okay? So let's just hop right into it. So let's start with rank 6. We're going to talk about the Hunters. We have the FGA-74 and the FR-74S. We added these two variants because it is basically the FGA, it is basically an FGA-9 that we have in the game already, so it would be basically that same aircraft. And the FR, we could have the FGA-74S as well, but the FR would be a little bit different, being the reconnaissance variant, export and reconnaissance variant, of basically a Hunter F6, you know, a Hunter FGA-9 as well. And it would have extra pylons and AIM-9s. The S variant would have the 9s and the extra pylons, and the FGA-74 would be the normal variant, like in 9.0, for example, or something like that, right? Or 8.7, I don't know. So these would be the first two aircraft, very interesting ones. Then we would go to the Strike Master. It is a British aircraft. We have the Mark 84 variant. It's a light attack training aircraft from the late 60s. The Mark 84 being the exported model to Singapore. It has two internal 7.62mm guns with 4 pylons under the wings to carry rockets, bombs, napalm, obviously. Fuel tanks, around 1,400 kilograms of capacity, and it can even carry more gun pods. 774 kilometers per hour of max speed, and one Rolls-Royce Viper engine with 14 kilonewtons, around 26 meters per second of climb. So very, very low BR, would be like an 8.0, 8.3, maybe even less than that, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, very early aircraft in that tech tree. But it would be an interesting one because it is a trainer, it is a biplaced trainer. It's very interesting, these aircraft. And yeah, let's go with the Skyhawks. The Skyhawks that they have are very, very interesting actually. They have the F4S. This is the main one that we will receive initially. This is basically a retrofitted F4B, right? It was an ex-USN A4B. So they were retrofitted or modernized by Singapore itself. They added more pylons, 5 instead of 3, and the ability to carry AIM-9s, and of course all sorts of bombs, rockets, napalm, etc., right? Having two 30mm Aidens instead of the 20mm Colts, which is an interesting thing as well. Had a brake chute, a better cockpit armor plating, refueling probe, a cranked refueling probe by the way, and other changes installed into it, making it over 100 changes to the original B. So it is a very, very much modernized version of the F4B, right? So that would be the normal tech tree ones that could be added. Then obviously a premium or event vehicle, whatever they feel it would be better. I think as a premium vehicle, it would be very interesting. We have the A4S1, which is very much the same upgrade as the F4S, but it is retrofitted from the A4C instead of the B, right? So they have the normal 20 millimeters instead of the 30s, and they can be identified by the straight IFR, in-flight refueling system, instead of the cranked one on the A4S, right? I couldn't confirm if only the S1 had a radar, but the B doesn't, right? So I would imagine that the F4S doesn't have a radar, and therefore S1 has a radar. So if that's the case, this one would have labs or basically CCRP, right? So very interesting, and smaller numbers if I'm not mistaken as well. Then we would go for rank 7. Rank 7 kind of not that like different, you know, a very like it's not that amazing, you know, it's very small. As I said, it would be a very small subtree, but very interesting as well. This would be basically the only together maybe with these hunters that they are kind of the same, the only copy-paste aircraft, maybe in the future, of course, these others, but therefore the F5E over here would be basically the same F5E that we know and love in the game, right? Nothing too crazy about that. And then the latest model of the A4SU. The A4SU is an even more modernized F4S due to the engines of the A4B becoming too hard and expensive to maintain. They actually installed an F404 without the afterburner engine. Yes, the Gripen engine, the F-18 engine. So also they included a new avionics, a new laser seeker, the PAVE Penny, which is a passive laser homing system to make basically the pilot and the aircraft and weapons, right, know where the laser designation from another airship or aircraft or ground or anything like that is, right? It has an INS, inertial navigation system, TACAN, another type of navigation system using radio frequencies, better RWRs, flares and chef, and I couldn't confirm if the original S used it, but at least this variant would receive the flares and chef. And he had, by the way, around 29% more thrust than the original A4S. So very much a modernized version of that, right? And then the F5T, let's just ignore it a little bit. Let's just go for the F5C, the F5S, which is a modernized F5E with a new Griffo radar. It's a 1991 modification, or 90s modification for it. So we had BVR missiles, a new HUD, MFDs, inertial navigation systems, better RWRs, better countermeasure systems, better HOTAs, and even a better leading edge route extensions, right? So it is more maneuverable than the original F5E. But it got one 20mm removed due to the extra avionics, right? And it was capable of firing the M120. So it's very, this one I actually love very much because it is very similar from what the F5M is here in Brazil, which is a Griffo radar as well. But we don't use the M120, we actually use the Derby missiles on it and the Python 4s, right? So it is a very interesting thing to see this aircraft because it's basically that, but way before us Brazilians actually did that, adding that radar and stuff. So it is very, very interesting to see this. So M120 is obviously A9 J's, normally B's, right? And also I would suggest that the AIM-7 was used as well. I couldn't confirm it. They do have Sparrows on their arsenal, and basically nothing before this could use it. So I would guess that the F5S can use the Sparrow. So it would be very interesting to see that. And the T variant would be basically the same level of upgrade to the F5S, right? The only thing is that it is a trainer, 2-seat version without a cannon. So it is basically the same aircraft as the S, but without the cannon and with a 2-place there. So it is combat capable, it can use the missiles. It would be a very interesting premium, to be honest, a trainer like that, right? And then we go for the F-16 OCU. Nothing too crazy, to be honest. They actually ordered the F-16-79, but since the F-100 engine one became available, the model of the F-16 with the F-100, for purchase in the 80s, they basically went for it and bought basically the F-16A Block 15 OCU. So this would be it. With one mod done to it. It has the Block 30s strengthened airframe. So it's a different airframe than the original Block 15's OCUs that they that existed in real life, right? Compared to the Block 10s and 15s, depending on respectively on which the weapons that could be added or not. It had a more reliable engine, enlarged HUD, similar to the Block 20's one, ability to carry the AGM-65 that the Block 15 that we have in the game don't have, and the ability to carry the M120, you know, that the ADF in-game can have, but it's not added yet. Has a narrator, an altimeter, better CPUs in the computers and stuff, better flares dispensers and countermeasures in general. Could use ECM, obviously. So as I said, it depends, of course, compared to the Block 10 and 15, it depends. But it would be basically an ADF that can do air-to-ground with the enlarged HUD that we have in the Block 20. Everything else would be pretty much the same as the other ADFs, right? And then we go for the F-16s. The F-16s would be the Block 52, the Cs, I mean, the Cs and the, right? The Block 52, a normal Block 52, with a down-rated version of a lantern pod. That's pretty much the difference between this version and the Block 50-52 from the Americans that they can have. So everything that the 52 had, F100 engine, APG-68, M120s, AGM-88s, etc., right? Nothing too crazy to talk about it. Same engine, F100, but in the F-16C, right? So very, very interesting Raider, much better than this one. F-16B Block 52 Plus. This would be a modernized version. We added as the B-placed version for it. So it has a better radar, some other minor things, a better HMD, for example, than the C, and oxygen systems and all sorts of stuff like that. Even conformal fuel tanks, it could, in theory, take it. I don't know if the Singapore Air Force actually used it. And then the two final aircraft, the F-15SG and the F-35B. So the F-15SG is an F-15E exported to Singapore, right? As far as I know, it isn't the advanced Eagle yet. So it's a B-placed Eagle, right? Has M120Cs, AIM-9Xs, JDAMs, AGM-154s, MVDs, APG-71 radar. It's an amazing aircraft. It would be a little bit behind in a dogfight compared to the single-seat versions, but overall, it would have an amazing radar, air-to-ground radar, air-to-ground capabilities that almost no other aircraft has it. So it is a very, very capable aircraft, and it would be basically what F-16D is, but on steroids in the meta, I think. You know, a B-placed aircraft that has a lot of potential of doing basically everything. A multi-role kind of situation that can basically do everything, right? And then obviously the last one, F-35, I don't think they actually received that aircraft yet, but 12 of those are bought, you know, so it is the B variant, so the VTOL variant, and probably, as far as I know, you will use the AIM-9X and AIM-120Cs as air-to-air. Nothing I can say too much about the F-35. Everybody knows what an F-35 is, right? Stealth 5th-gen aircraft that can come to Japan as well, just like the F-15 can in certain models as well. And yeah, the F-35 could be added as well. And basically, this is it, guys. This would be the smaller sub-tree for Singapore in the Japanese tech tree. As I said, I'm considering that maybe the Koreans would be their own tree. So if that's the case, Singapore being added as this would help Japan to be competitive, always receiving something for a while, right? And it would be very interesting. I mean, as you see, there are some copy-pastes here, you know, but normally they have some sort of difference between the American versions and all sorts of versions that can be added, right? So it would be very interesting. On the very least, it would have a very different skin, and just it would be very, very fun to actually fly this aircraft, in my opinion. But anyway, by the way, just before I wrap the video up, remember the missiles that they used were the AIM-7s. I couldn't confirm what variant. I would suggest that it probably is the F and the M or something like that, and probably the M, but still. The AIM-9s is the P, the J, and the S apparently, which is a version that we don't have technically in game yet, but still, it isn't much different than the other ones that we have. And also the AIM-RAMs, right? The AIM-9Xs, all sorts of more modern stuff that we will see in the future, right? But anyway, this was it. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of video. if you would see a Singapore aircraft, if you would get these aircraft or not, and let me know in the comments, and I see you guys on the next one. Bye guys, subscribe.